Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see so many of you joining us. This is Melissa Buckley. I'm the program manager for the California Energy Smart Homes program and an associate director here at TRC. I'm joined today by Melinda Dinnan, who you've heard me chatting with. She's our marketing manager for the program. Also Nick Dunphy, who is director at TRC as well of decarbonization. They'll be chiming in and helping with questions while we talk today about the program updates for Energy Smart Homes. First things first, just want to share with you some of the tools on GoToWebinar. Please feel welcome to go ahead and use the questions box to submit any questions that you have. We'll be monitoring those throughout, and when appropriate, you'll get an answer back. Otherwise, we can add them into the discussions at the end of the presentation. I do also want to note that we are recording this presentation and we'll share the link with all of the registered attendees early next week. You can also pass that along when you receive it. And again, grateful to have you all here with us today as we talk about the exciting program updates. Just a brief overview of the agenda on what we'll be presenting today. Welcome. We'll talk briefly about the mixed fuel portion of the program, share a number of updates for the all-electric program, give some highlights on the program process, and allow some time for discussion at the end. So for those of you who this is your first introduction to Energy Smart Homes, California Energy Smart Homes is a residential new construction and alterations program that is really aimed at supporting electrification through the installation of advanced energy efficiency technologies. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the slides later in the presentation, but the program is intended to serve single family and multifamily low-rise, again, offering opportunities for both new construction and alterations in existing buildings. A little who's who about the players involved in this program. We do receive funding from the California Public Utilities Commission via the Public Purchase Program charge. The program administrator for this program is PG&E. They're serving as the new construction lead for all of the California investor-owned utilities. And then TRC's role is the implementer. So when we talk about the program team and staff, those are TRC folks that you will be working with. Okay, a few updates, at least from a high level, and I'll talk about these in more detail. But for those of you who have not yet heard, the mixed fuel program will be closing at the end of this year, specifically December 31st, 2022. We'll go through the requirements of that program briefly and some key dates as well. Today, our main focus is going to be on the whole building electrification program that's carrying forward, so an all-electric offering. We're really excited to share this with you today because this revised design really improves the program participation process, removes a lot of barriers to eligibility, makes it easier for specifically new construction projects to get enrolled, and offers higher incentives through next calendar year, and also includes a pathway for targeted measures that support the installation of proven measures. So things that have been verified and proven but are not widely seen in the market yet. And I'll talk about those a little bit later at the end of closer to the end of the presentation. So just some keynotes on mixed fuel. If you do have projects that are still using gas, just want to share that this opportunity is still open through the end of the year. We're still accepting mixed fuel applications for new construction and alterations projects through December 31st. For new construction specifically, that means that your project would need to get through TRC's plan review process, so working with us on any revisions as needed and ensuring that all of the required documentation is complete and submitted by December 31st of this year. If you're able to get all of that submitted prior to then, we encourage you to do so. Come January 1, we're shifting to all electric whole building only. If we do have mixed fuel projects that are participating in the new construction pathway that have submitted all their application materials by the end of the year, we're anticipating that those projects will have until the end of 2024 to complete construction. Here, this slide outlines the eligibility requirements for the mixed fuel new construction pathway. I think one of the biggest things for us to emphasize here for all of you is any new construction project that is still pursuing this must achieve a delta EDR of 2 or greater. This is the same requirement that we launched at the beginning of this year in January, so that hasn't changed. On the left is the list of all of the prerequisites that these projects must install. On the right, you'll see some reference to the documentation that needs to be provided. So residential new construction, mixed fuel projects will still submit energy models signed off by a CEA. We need to receive any application for these projects before drywall. And of course, these projects can't receive incentives for the same measure from any other public purpose program. In terms of incentives for mixed fuel new construction, you'll see them here on your screen. The base incentive for single family or duplex projects is $800 per dwelling unit, with a bonus available for any EDR delta points over 2, based on that calculation you see there. Multifamily low-rise dwelling units, the incentives start at $450. In terms of mixed fuel alterations, really what that means for the mixed fuel program is the conversion of gas appliances and equipment to advanced electric systems. And currently, through the end of December, projects are able to submit applications for just one of these changeouts. So I'll talk a little bit later about how alterations changes under the new all-electric design, but through the end of this year, the program is still able to incentivize each of these on a single item basis. All of this information is still available on our website, and as we've mentioned, this will be recorded and shared with you, so don't feel like you have to rush to jot all of this information down. If you're so inclined, you can also complete all 4 of these upgrades as well, or just select one. Okay, on to the bigger update for today, talking about the all-electric new construction and alterations program. For both of those, just a refresher on eligibility. These are going to be available to customers in California investor-owned utility territories, specifically PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E. So you can see where those are all located on this map. I'm sure you're all very familiar with those locations and service territories. For single family all electric new construction, again, we're maintaining a number of the prerequisites that we required when the program launched at the beginning of January. These apply for the most part to single family homes, duplexes, townhomes, accessory dwelling units or ADUs, and manufactured homes. You can see that there are some prerequisites that are not required for ADUs. Although we have moved beyond the Delta EDR requirement, and that is no longer needed for eligibility purposes, the program team will still be reviewing all of the energy models and Title 24 documentation for these projects. Same rules apply in terms of no double dipping for incentives, and of course, adherence to all of the applicable laws. While we have, as I mentioned a couple times, done away with that EDR Delta requirement, this all-electric pathway does require heat pump technologies that are better than the prescriptive code requirements. So there is still a better than code element to this program design. But again, no more EDR Delta required. Same is true for multifamily low-rise. EDR delta is gone. Looking at better than prescriptive code requirements through these heat pump technologies, similar prerequisites, and all of the same documentation that we required previously is still required for these projects. So not much change there, but really the good news is the technical review process that the program goes through for new construction projects in all of this, or excuse me, in the all electric program is much faster. There aren't as many parameters on it in terms of timing for your projects, so that should align better with your construction timelines. Here are the per unit incentives. So these are still pretty lucrative in the first couple of years. You'll see that the multifamily low-rise and ADU incentives are at the same level. These again are on a per dwelling unit basis. So all buildings that, for instance, are participating in the multifamily low-rise option, that would be a per dwelling unit amount. One thing too that I want to make really clear here is that for multifamily especially, any building that comes through the program needs to be all electric. If you have a building on your property, on the multifamily property that does not have dwelling units and then would not be enrolling in this program, say it's a common area space, maybe a meeting space that your residents use and doesn't have any dwelling units, that would be excluded from the requirements and would not be incentivized by this program. So we can talk more specifically about some of those details later in the discussion and the questions, or you can reach out to us about your project specifics. But just keep in mind that multifamily is looking at the buildings on site that have those dwelling units. And on to alterations. So what this program now requires is, again, a whole building approach to alterations and electrification in that space. So converting all gas appliances and equipment to these advanced electrical systems, including the measures that you see here. The mixed fuel pathway only requires one. Moving into this all electric whole building approach requires conversion of all of these end uses. What's really great though is now the all electric option includes infrastructure upgrades. That is not required, but we are able to now incentivize that and provide additional bonus incentives for heat pump clothes dryers as opposed to electric clothes dryers in the alteration space. In terms of electrification alterations, I know this is a lot to look at. This is also all available on the website as well. Single family dwelling unit alterations start at $5,500 a unit or $5,500. If one were to also pursue a heat pump dryer and would need to make some infrastructure upgrades, that significantly increases that per unit incentive, closer to nearly $7,000 for that single family home. Again, you can see that there are similar bonus opportunities for ADUs and multifamily as well. This last one here, central heat pump water heater installation, this is a targeted measure, which I will be talking about momentarily, but this is a newer measure to the program, something that wasn't available when we launched in January, and we're really excited to bring this to the multifamily market. In terms of targeted measures, we have two great opportunities here. So as I mentioned earlier, targeted measures are intended to provide greater opportunity to install proven measures that aren't widely adopted. So for central heat pump measures, for instance, we have both a design incentive and an installation incentive. So what we're looking to do is provide up to $20,000 for complete and stamped MEP design documentation for your central heat pump water heater project. For that incentive, installation is not required. We understand that there are a lot of questions identifying how a new measure like this can work for your building or your property. There's a lot of legwork to be done. We want to support that as much as possible. That's the intention of this design incentive. The installation incentive is up to $1,500 per each unit that is served by that central heat pump water heater. So again, a per unit or per dwelling unit incentive available here. You do not have to do the design incentive to receive the installation incentive. However, the installation incentive requires complete program enrollment and participation. So if I go back to the previous slide, you would be doing all of the alterations for the multifamily building to be able to also then include this installation incentive. We're still looking for targeted measure projects to be all electric. In terms of program process, this is streamlined now. The plan review portion for new construction is significantly shorter. We're reviewing the documents that I mentioned earlier, all of the energy models and Title 24 documentation and everything that accompanies that. And after we do that, we can enroll the project. During construction and installation, we will work with you also to schedule site visits across the sampling of projects so that we can verify the installation and specifically understand how your project is meeting all of the requirements and the prerequisites. Once we've confirmed that, then we complete and get ready for incentive payment. Alteration applications are submitted after construction. So it's an abbreviated process. You submit all of your documentation with your application. We review that and verify it and work with you on completion to get your incentive payment. The first step in getting ready to submit all of those application materials for this program is to create a portal account. So we have an Energy Smart Homes portal. The link is here. Melinda will be, again, sharing this webinar so that you can access that directly. We have various application checklists to walk you through the abbreviated process I just described on the previous slide for each project type, and a number of resources as well on the resources page of our website. When you get to the website, you'll see these options. So when you're ready to enroll, you can click on this Apply Now button. It'll take you to the online application to get started. You would click on the Begin Online Application and then create your login, and then it'll walk you through the rest of the application process. Everything is online, and then the accompanying documents get submitted as well. Okay, I think I blew through that pretty quickly, so I'm hoping we may have some questions. Nick, anything coming in that we want to share with the broader group or answer for everyone?
I think we could go through a few of these just to make sure things are clear.
Sure. And if you,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to offer, if you like, go ahead and read, and if you want to answer, as I know you've been monitoring them.
Yeah, I can do that. So one of the questions was about single end use alterations, and those will end at the end of this year. There are other programs out there. We realize that this comment had concerns about panel upgrades. We realize that, you know, going to full building electrification means that there will be more need for panel upgrades, but there are also other programs that are incentivizing individual end uses. Our program and the direction of our program is moving towards whole building electrification only starting January 1. That is on new construction and alterations. So we will only incentivize buildings that have no gas service to them starting January 1st.
And I'll just add too, if that person would like to reach out to us, we can help get you connected with some of those other programs that Nick is referring to. Go ahead, Nick.
Great. We have several questions about layering. We can layer with certain programs and certain ones we can't. It all depends on the funding source of those programs. The two major statewide programs, Tech and Build, we can layer with those. There will be a new program coming out the beginning of next year, the California Electric Homes program through the CEC. We should be able to layer with that program as well. We can layer with most CCA programs. The programs that we cannot layer with are the other IOU programs that are also funded from the public purpose program charges. So the PPP charges, they're referred to often as resource programs. We cannot layer with those. So that's typically the REN programs, the local IOU programs, or other statewide IOU CPUC funded programs. But the two big ones that have popped up, Tech and Build, we can definitely layer with those two. The other specific program that was questioned was the Comfortable Homes program, the PG&E Alterate Retrofit program. We cannot layer with that program. They would have to participate in either one program or the other. And that's a perfect example of if a project is not going full electric, there are programs out there available for them to change off those individual end uses. We have a question about duplexes. Duplexes are eligible. They follow the single, duplexes and triplexes would follow the single family structure. There's some new questions coming in. If a local city also has an incentive program, does it preclude participation? Again, it depends on the funding. Most municipal programs would be able to layer, but again, if you have questions on layering and specific programs, please reach out and we would be happy to work through it. And if it's a program that we have not dealt with yet, we will work through it with you on figuring out where that funding comes from and if it is a layerable program. The question is about multifamily of all heights. This program covers low-rise multifamily only, so 3 stories and less. High-rise multifamily would participate in the statewide commercial new construction program, the CETA program. So they're asking about the removal of the EDR requirement. The removal of the EDR requirement is effective immediately for the all-electric program. The mixed fuel program is going through no changes. The Delta EDR requirement will continue through the end of the year through the sunsetting of that program. I'm looking to see if there's any new ones on here.
I saw one about the federal incentives to the Inflation Reduction Act. This is separate from that. And then as those roll out, we encourage you to work with your financial advisor on how those can apply, as many of them will be coming in like tax rebates. But this, for all intents and purposes, this is separate.
Thank you, Melissa. There's a question about, will we have a contractor locator? We are not developing a specific program contractor network. We are requiring that contractors have a current license and proper insurance. We will verify that the first time a contractor comes through. With all of the contractor networks being set up around electrification, including the larger, the Switches On campaign with the BDC, we plan to utilize those existing lists and those existing databases as opposed to flooding the market with alternative sources. Seeing if I see any other ones we haven't addressed. I think CCA funded programs. Most CCA funded programs we will be able to layer with. I know MCE is now receiving PPP funds, so certain ones of their programs, we would have to look and see where that funding is coming from. But most CCA programs we can layer with.
Just a reminder too, while we're talking about that, to also be eligible, the project needs to be receiving service from one of those 3 IOU territories I mentioned for the all-electric program: PG&E, Southern California Edison, and SDG&E. And then mixed fuel projects that are still accepted through the end of the year may also participate from SoCal Gas territory.
So we have a question. Is there a minimum square footage requirement on alterations, or simply changing a gas furnace to a heat pump would be eligible? There's no square footage minimum, but it is not just changing out the gas furnace to a heat pump. For the all electric program, we would need to change out all end uses to electric. If you do have a project that's just changing out one end use, that would have to be submitted by the end of this year to participate in the mixed fuel program. For clarification, if they want to convert central HVAC to heat pump, they would also have to convert water heater and all gas appliances in home to get any incentives. Correct. Through our program, starting January 1st, they would have to convert all end uses over to electric so that there's no gas service to the dwelling units.
And that's January 1st, 2023.
Question on the transformer and design sizes. That's something that we would want you to speak with your engineer and your utility service about. We are a demand side program. We look at the demand side of the meter. Anything on the supply side of the meter would have to be looked at and dealt with your engineers and the utility that's providing that service. There are other incentives from the utilities for alterations, retrofits. As I mentioned earlier, the Comfortably California PG&E local program is one example of that. I know there are others. I'm not familiar with the names of them right off the top of my head, and some of the other IOU territories as well. So the all electric program changes are taking place immediately. They are available. They are available now. The mixed fuel just sunsets at the end of the year. There's a question about eligibility if it starts now or it starts in 2023. The program has been updated and we are proceeding with the new design starting immediately for all electric, and that mixed fuel is remaining unchanged and will sunset on December 31st. How much will be needed to exceed by Title 24 by? We don't have a whole building Delta EDR requirement for the new all electric program. Our requirement is that the heat pumps installed must be better than prescriptive. So we're looking at a SEER 15 on the HVAC side. And I have to be honest, I cannot remember what the water heater requirement is off the top of my head. We will have to get back to you on that one. But basically, we are looking for the individual end uses that are being installed to exceed Title 24 prescriptive minimums. But we are no longer in the all electric program requiring whole building EDR above code. There's a question about a 3-day workshop on electrification. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Would be happy to take that conversation offline. High-rise multifamily project, there's a question there. Again, the statewide program there is the CETA program. Commercial Energy Design Assistance Program, which is operated by Willdan. Because of the bifurcation of multifamily in the current code cycle, that's how the program was initially set up, with high rise in the commercial program and low rise in the residential program. And due to those contracts being in place, that is continuing even with multifamily coming into its own entity within the code. They still have that bifurcation in the programs between low rise and high rise. So high rise goes through the CEDO program. There's a question about new construction versus alterations. Again, we are incentivizing both new construction and alterations for single family, duplex, multifamily, low rise, but it does have to be full building electrification in both cases. New construction projects that have already begun construction should reach out to us. We would want to make sure that you are, we want to see where you're at currently in construction, and what your current design is in order to make that determination. So if you do have a project underway, please reach out to us and we can talk to you and see if you would be eligible to apply, or what you may need to add to the project in order to be eligible to apply. If a project is being upgraded to all electric and all gas services being removed, that project would be eligible. The question is about remodeled with the electric upgrade, but there is an existing gas meter. We realize there's going to be an existing gas meter. We want to make sure that all gas service is being removed, that all natural gas appliances and any natural gas using features of the home are being removed. There's a question about a program from Rick Gonzalez. I am not sure what this program you're referring to is. Again, any specific questions on programs, we're happy to address and figure out if they are eligible for layering. So please reach out and we'll take a look into those programs. There's a question about eligibility for municipalities like LADWP. This program is eligible for electric IOU utilities. So that would be PG&E, SoCal Edison, SDG&E territory. So LADWP would not be eligible for this program. And the mixed fuel program currently includes those three and SoCal gas territory, but again, that will be sunsetting in December.
There was a question about materials. We have fact sheets that explain each of these pathways that are available on the website. So if you, I know we're doing a poll right now, but when it goes back to the other screen, you can see the website link and go to the resources page, and there are a number of fact sheets that you can use to speak about this program that have the information that we presented today.
Thank you, Melissa. We have another question about the incentives versus what's in the handbook. All of the documentation is being updated, but yes, we do have updated incentives for multifamily for the all-electric multifamily program. 2020, how will 2022 code changes impact the EDR score? Again, the new program for all electric does not require a Delta EDR. We just require above prescriptive minimum efficiencies for the electric equipment, for the heat pump space heating or the heat pump water heating. And then through the end of this code cycle, we will keep the Delta EDR of 2 for mixed fuel new construction projects.
As Nick mentioned earlier, though, the all electric whole building pathway is effective now. So if there are new construction projects that can meet the all electric requirements, we can talk with you about enrollment timelines. As he had mentioned earlier, if you have a project that's in process or shortly in process, it would be good to get in touch with us soon.
Thank you. Question about communicating thermostats. Yes, we are looking for ADR capability in those thermostats. Yes, confirming that we cannot layer with Comfortably California. I am not familiar with Golden State rebates, but if that is CPUC public purchase program funded, then yes, we cannot layer with that. We can take a look at that program. That's a new one to me.
Nick, I can confirm we cannot layer with that one. That is through the CPUC.
Thank you, Melinda. So the question about the 100% electrification for the all electric program and everything moving forward starting January 1st, everything must be whole building electrification. We will incentivize in alterations individual end uses through the end of this year, and that will cease with the closed sunsetting of the mixed fuel program. And I believe, unless I missed one, we just got through all of the questions.
Great.
Actually, there's one question that just says there's a question about incentive rates. So if Roshni, if you would like to be a little more specific, I'd be happy to address that question. Just not sure what the question is there.
While we wait for that, Melinda, did we get through both of the polls?
We did. I did close the poll.
Okay. I think, okay. Great. I think maybe Roshni, do you want to follow up with us and we can talk more specifically about your questions around multifamily alterations, or perhaps you mean mixed fuel by MF, but why don't you shoot us an email to caenergysmarthomes@trccompanies.com. And if for any reason the poll didn't work for any of you, please feel welcome to send an email to that email address. If you're interested in scheduling either a virtual or in-person training for your team on whole building electrification, or if you would like us to contact you or be in touch with you about a project that you may have that's getting ready to get started and could be a fit for this program, please feel welcome to send all those inquiries to that email address. You can also reach us by phone as well.
And I did find one question that I missed going through this list. The suggestion to contractors, if they want to implement to their customers, there are fact sheets available on our website that can be downloaded and printed or sent to a prospective customer, or you can send them to the website or to us directly. But yes, there are program fact sheets, PDFs that are available to help you discuss the program with your customers. We are also happy to assist in those conversations as well if necessary.
Okay, Melinda, I think you may need to close.
I did. I did
poll.
close the poll. Maybe I can change presenter so we can pull the information up.
Okay.
Am I showing the right one?
I took it so I can show.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. All right, so hopefully you can all see the contact information again. I think that should do it. Any
Well,
other
everyone,
questions,
thank
Nick?
you again for joining us. We'll be hosting this again with the same exciting information on December 1st. You can register for that on our resources page on the Energy Smart Homes website. We will also post a copy of this recording on that very same page under our video channel. So thank you again for joining us today.